Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Poultry Network podcast. My name's Tom Willings.
And I'm Tom Woolman.
We're going to have a bit of a roundup, Tom, aren't we? 2025 in the proverbial rearview mirror, and a quick summary of what we think the key events have been across the poultry sector.
Yeah. But I think first of all, Tom, I probably ought to say, I thought when we discussed this that we were going to be doing a Christmas jumper episode because it is the Christmas episode. But I can see, true to form, both you and I have turned up in a grey fleece.
This is actually green.
Is it?
And this makes dreadful listening for anybody who's not got the audio and the video. But you should think yourself lucky if you're not watching two bald middle-aged blokes sat in their living rooms talking about poultry. It's bad enough just listening to it. But yeah, this is about as Christmassy as I get at the minute. You probably call it drab, I think, or olive green.
Olive green,
pretty dull.
Yeah. You're not going to frighten the birds walking around a chicken shed with that on.
No.
That's for
Although,
sure.
Again, for the listeners rather than the watchers, the cat has just left. So
the cat has just walked out. Yeah, she's had enough already.
Realised what's going on. I've listened to this tripe before I'm leaving, she says. There we go. Speaking of livestock, everybody listening will want to know. So I have to ask you just a quick sheep update. One line.
Sheep update is two of them are lame. The ram is out and two of them are lame. So we're into the world of sheep farming.
Vets.
How long is it? Until one of them turns up its toes. I don't know, but
I give it till Christmas. Yeah. Goodness me.
Anyway, so I think if we were looking at the big news stories of 2025, I think probably the big topic that people have been talking about has been bird flu, obviously. And I think we've been talking quite a bit about bird flu and over the past couple of months and the situation here. But actually, if we cast our minds back to the end of 2024 and the start of 2025, and it was really quite a tumultuous time, wasn't it?
We've got quite a short memory, haven't we, I suppose, as an industry. I guess we have to in order to keep going. There'll be a lot of people who've endured torrid times year after year after year. Yes, right now may not be one of those times, bird flu aside, but otherwise we're probably blessed to have a slightly shorter memory. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We, in the last couple of months, have been talking about just how appalling the outlook has been for the 25-26 season, but we've very quickly forgotten that our birds remain housed long into 2025. I think it was it May 15th of May that we let birds out, and they're straight back in from 31st of October, if my memory serves, or 6th of November. It extended. If you remember, we had a kind of an interim measure of 3/4 of England in a housing order, which at the time you and I commented on as being slightly strange, and then that was extended for England at least only a week later, and now here we are, and a little bit more equivalence. But
so for some birds in the country, they've only been outside really for just over 6 months of the year. And last year,
with the inevitable consumer questions that come that follow that. Why am I paying a premium for a free range product when the birds never go outside or don't have access to go outside? You can understand from a consumer point of view. Several years down the track since the first housing order, I say first, but of this prolonged, repetitive period of time came in, there was all sorts of concern about what the consumer reaction would be, and I would contest that, working in the supply chain at that point, that there really wasn't a consumer reaction. There was shelf front messaging and real endeavour showed to inform people as to why it was necessary, why it was proportionate, how it was equivalent to what was going on in terms of the human response to the pandemic at the time. And there weren't really any dissenting voices. I think patients might be slightly more frayed with the consumers and possibly with the retailers as well. But yeah, you couldn't talk about this year without bird flu, unfortunately, probably being the headline.
And it impacted as well some of the developments that were going on as the country was transitioning, or certainly at a retail level, towards cage free. And obviously one of the big farms that was impacted was Griffiths. That was in January
Very early
2025.
on. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
1.3 million birds. That's between laying hens and pullets. But at a stroke, mathematically, it's something around 3% of the laying flock
Mm,
just gone,
mm,
and in barn systems. So,
mm.
um, you know, immediately putting that transition from cage into barn under extraordinary pressure
Yeah,
from a national point of view.
yeah, yeah. And so we saw a bit of a wobble, didn't we? I think in the summer with Iceland, I think signalled that they were actually going to drop their cage free commitment. But then within
Didn't last long, did it?
no, well, you know what happened? Joanna Lumley got involved, and
Yeah, Compassion
when,
in World Farming got their friends out.
yeah, when Joanna starts talking, people start listening, don't they? I mean, I
Mm.
certainly start listening. Um, yeah, so it was a little bit like the hokey cokey. They were out, but then they're back in again. So yes, quite where we'll be come 2026 after the end of this winter, I don't know, because as you say, that the impact of that AI hit on the Griffiths business, you can't replace that.
Mm.
You certainly can't
Yeah,
replace that in 12 months. So I think there'll be a lot of decisions to be made.
there's there are still large retail orientated businesses who still have production yet to convert. So their plans haven't changed. The execution of those plans have been possibly delayed or interrupted by either bird flu or other operational reasons around access to farms, etc., or even equipment. But there is still an unwinding of colony cage and into barn production yet to take place that I suspect will go on throughout 2026 as well. Where it'll all end up, I would imagine that in the very, very long term, um, there'll be a legislative change and European wide, not just UK, but beyond these shores as well. Housed production will not mean caged production.
But yeah, as you say, how long that'll take, who knows?
Yeah,
Because there's
indeed.
not exactly a surplus of eggs, are they? Not in this country or on the European continent either.
And that doesn't look like that's going to change for a whole host of different reasons. But you look at the Dutch system where they're paying farmers to come out of production. Whether that's a good deal for farmers or not is a subject for another podcast. But there is the expectation that there's another 5 or 6 million laying hens to come out of that national flock in 26. That's an equivalent number to those that have been removed in 25. So you're talking perhaps in total 25% reduction to the Dutch laying flock, which has big implications for all sorts of other markets because they're a huge net exporter.
They've always been a big exporter, haven't they? Of all sorts of products.
300% self-sufficient. A lot of their production going into Germany, but some of it coming this way as well.
Mm. So maybe if we could just move on then from eggs and dip our toe into what the year has been like for broiler production. I thought I wanted to start off really by saying that it's been an incredibly strong year when it comes to physical performance, which is generally measured by EPEF. And 2025 saw for the first time a broiler crop in the UK hit 500 EPEF, which is quite an amazing achievement. I think I looked it up. It was Edward Caldecott, who was growing for Pilgrims Europe. But he might have been the first. He certainly wasn't the last. And there have been a number of other crops which have gone over 500. And obviously, most of these birds, the vast majority of these birds are Ross 308s, and Avian is almost playing catch up, I think, with the genetics. Initially they launched their 400 club when a 400 EPF was a bit of a pipe dream for people and seen as an aspiration. Well, now 400.
How long ago was that, Tom?
Roughly. Well, it wasn't that long ago. I think it might have only been 10 years ago or something like that.
Okay.
Maybe not even that. But now 400, quite frankly, is the average. And a lot of people, if they're getting 400, they'd be quite disappointed. And so there was a 450 club, but then that was increased to the 470 club this year as well as performance went on. And I've been informed by some fairly reliable sources that probably the bar is going to have to go up again in terms of the gold standard whereby when people hit this standard of EPF Avian, give them a certificate and a bit of a reward and a bit of recognition. So I wonder whether that is going to go up to 500 potentially in the future.
It's got a much better ring to it, hasn't it? A 500 club versus a 470 club. The equivalent in the world of eggs would be, Joyce and Hill, the Hendricks Genetics distributor over here, have got their 500 club, their 500 eggs in a cycle, which their DeKalb White is achieving. From what I can tell, pretty much every flock that goes down is on track for that. But I don't think they'd get quite as much mileage out of the certificates if it was the 471 club or whatever it is that.
No, but it's been a huge success really, this initiative by Avigen, because broiler growers tend to be pretty competitive individuals. They enjoy doing it because they enjoy having 7 crops a year and always trying to do better than they did the last time. So, certainly it's been a great year when it comes to broiler performance. It's also been a good year for prices. I think really wherever you are producing broilers, whether you're producing for an integrator or whether you're on the wholesale market, prices have been good. And then on top of that as well, feed prices have also really trickled down. I mean, they weren't in a bad place at the start of 2025, but they probably dropped by 20 or 25 pounds per tonne over the course of the year, which has further helped the margins that people are getting.
I was looking at some egg margins in the last couple of weeks, and I've been out of the egg supply chain for 3 years, and the margins, the gross margin over feed that farms are earning today is higher than the total top line revenue that they were making while I was in the chain. It's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. And I think there was, in the middle of the year, people were a little bit worried, weren't they, that egg prices were going to cool off slightly. But there certainly hasn't been a big nosedive, has there? It has remained fairly strong.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, they've been going up in the course of the last 3 months. There have been increases paid back to farmers outside of, or in fact, as you've already mentioned, with falling feed price, against the cost of production metric that is roundly used, which would be just feed cost. Going in the opposite direction, prices up while costs down.
Mm-hmm.
All good for margin.
Yeah, in terms of structural changes in the broiler sector, the big news really was the Hook Two Sisters joint venture divorce, where PD Hook and Two Sisters broke up their joint venture that had been going for a good number of years. And that's really reinvigorated both of those businesses individually. PD Hook have come out and said that they want to build a new hatchery in the west of the country. And To Agriculture, which has, I guess, historically just been a milling business, but now is an integration, an agricultural integration in its own right, is really pushing on. And there's some quite big structural changes as well in terms of the feed sector and who's supplying who. To Agriculture acquired 2 mills from 4 farmers at the start of the year as well, and so they're using that to feed their own farms now that they've got supplying into Two Sisters. So lots and lots of change in the feed sector as well. It's quite an interesting thing to keep an eye on going forward.
And the same true in the egg industry.
Yeah,
the egg industry has been littered with merger and acquisition news. A lot of it in the middle of the year. But if I try and sort of cast my mind back to Q1 or perhaps it was April, I think there was an Italian investment into relatively small processed egg business called Two Chicks. So that's a brand name that you might see on the supermarket shelf with a Tetra Pak of egg white or an egg white blend. Eurovo bought that business. And then, middle of the year, what do we had? We had a joint venture announcement with Griffiths and French business Eurodent. We had Noble Foods acquiring Just Egg, the processing business. But the big news of that time was Bumble Hole's sale to the Dutch company, the Hardeman Group. So part of the Hardeman Group is also a company called Quetters, enormous production business based over there. As we've already mentioned, the Netherlands a central point for the whole European market. So, yeah, an investment in the UK is a really interesting call.
Mm.
But
And
then most recently, and arguably biggest news of all, was the sale of an egg packer, Sunrise, based in Leicestershire, to a Latvian, of all countries, Latvian business under the name Agrova. I think relatively recently formed business. Again, it's an umbrella over two or three other egg businesses. But the I suppose 4 out of 5 of those moves involve European investment coming into the UK industry, which I think, well, begs all sorts of questions. It's just very, very interesting. You think post our exit from the European Union, on our little island, we would be quite a difficult market to break into, to access, and maybe
well,
that's the argument.
It's never been more difficult to do business with Europe, has it? I had to send a package off to my dad for Christmas. He lives in France and he's over in France for Christmas. And I put together a parcel for him to send over. And I must have been in the post office for about half an hour filling out the customs declaration. Bearing in mind as well, it's completely ruining the Christmas present because it has this customs declaration slapped on the front that says exactly what's inside it and how much I paid for it as well. So
spirit of Christmas sacrificed on the altar of bureaucracy.
Spirit of Brexit, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's happened as well in the meat sector, hasn't it? Fairly recently, for those that aren't aware, Gressingham Foods sold a majority stake in their business to French poultry giants, LDC, who already own Capestone, free range turkey and chicken producer in the UK, based in South Wales. So, yeah, it's quite an interesting trend, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think for LDC, their diversification into relatively niche parts of the poultry industry in the UK is a very, very interesting call. I'm forgive me for saying it, and I've got good friends that work in both businesses, but when I think of Capestone and when I think of Gressingham, I think of just the turmoil that both businesses have suffered at the hands of the aforementioned bird flu. I hope LDC have got some support to bring to the poor guys operating on the floor in both West Wales and the eastern counties, because every year those guys seem to get absolutely hammered by bird flu. But Capestone and their premium outdoor chicken and turkey and Gressingham their duck. I'm sure both of those businesses will be kind of transformed by the enormous, absolutely vast. I mean, this is a business I think that's got about 8,000 farms across 15 or 16 operating countries.
Yeah. Turnover is about 6 billion, I think.
Yeah. I would imagine they will transform those companies.
But I wonder. You alluded to it a little bit, didn't you, in terms of unlocking supply chains across Europe, because now really what the situation with avian influenza has created is that it's very difficult sometimes to predict your outbreaks and your supply from certain parts of the European continent. And is this partly European businesses trying to get more control and more flexibility, even with some of the barriers that we've got in terms of doing business with Europe?
I can't speak with any knowledge on the meat sector for that. I will leave that to you. But I think on the egg side of things, I don't know that avian influenza would be a particular motive for investment in the UK, more than, we ultimately are less than self-sufficient, 85 maybe self-sufficient. That's an estimate. But that import that's coming in, these businesses, certainly you look at Hardeman, Eurovo, Euroden, they're all companies that would love to have a good foothold in the UK market. And perhaps their investment here is about creating a position of being sort of first among equals of those European-based businesses. But, we are a country dependent on our supermarkets. Maybe 75% of the eggs that we consume, whether that's all of our fresh eggs, or our processed egg, particularly where the egg is the the central ingredient, the halo ingredient, the identifiable ingredient. We are committed to buying British. So you would have thought that would be something that made the European investor a little bit more sluggish about putting their money into our market, particularly given that we're outside of the European Union now. Yes, there's all sorts of motions for equivalence, and who knows where we will end up in the years to come. But there's an enormous market within the EC that they've got unfettered access to. So to me, it's a little bit of a surprise that they would look to put their money in here. That said, I've said so many times on these episodes and elsewhere of the latent opportunity to grow this market. We quite significantly undereat eggs per capita. We languish at sort of 200 per capita when other countries across Europe more typically are 220 to 250. So, there is great growth potential if we can unlock a really healthy, innovative, competitive, and specifically product-based, potential.
Yeah. Very good. So I think in terms of 2025, that's probably a pretty good roundup, really.
I think you've missed one thing, Tom.
What's
will
that?
Will you forgive me for saying, but the big news of the last couple of weeks surely was the Southwest Chicken Association auction.
I was just about to come on to that, Tom.
I feared you'd forgotten.
This is what happens when we don't write a script properly for the podcast.
Have we ever done that?
About twice, I think. About twice, and it was well worth it the two times that we've done it. But yes, absolutely right. We auctioned off the chance to be guest editor on the Poultry Network podcast at the Southwest Chicken Association Christmas dinner on the 4th.
Can I intervene?
Please do.
Really, really quickly. Everybody should know that actually you were the auctioneer. Let's just paint a picture. You were attending as a guest to the conference, and knowing that a slot to guest edit your podcast, you elbowed out the host scheduled to auction off the prizes, nobbled Paddy Hook, took the microphone, and then got to work and did pretty well by all accounts.
Yes.
You've raised some money for charity.
I've raised some money for charity. Yeah. So thank you to Robert Lanning, who purchased the prize. He paid £250 for it, which is brilliant. Thank you. And this goes to air ambulance charities across the Southwest. So it was one prize as part of a larger auction. So I really did have my work cut out trying to get money out of people. There was a turkey actually that sold for £100, which I think was an absolute bargain, given the continued state of avian influenza in the UK. But yes, so we look forward to welcoming Robert at some point in the new year and listening to what his ideas are and setting up an episode with him. Yeah, thank you, Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. And well done, Tom. 2.5 turkeys. The Poultry Network podcast equals 2.5 turkeys. That's an equation I like the sound of. We're on the right side of the maths there.
Very good. Well, it just remains for me to wish you a very, very happy Christmas, Tom.
And the same to you, Tom. The same to you and yours and your sheep. And look forward to seeing you in the new year. And to all of our listeners, wherever you're spending Christmas, however you're celebrating the festive period, we wish you a very merry and happy time, and look forward to joining you again in 2026. Please do subscribe and make sure you don't miss an episode.